Being Disney's very first vacation club, Disney's Old Key West Resort is often described fondly by other Disney Vacation Club members. For us, I can't say that it's our favorite resort, mostly due to the fact that it's in a location where you need to take a bus to get to any of the theme parks. But interestingly enough, the last time we stayed here, we had invited some family members who didn't have park tickets, and we had the best time just hanging around the resort, enjoying many of the amenities and all of the additional areas that are accessible by our feet and Disney's complimentary boat system. That's why we consider Old Key West the best DVC resort for a non-park stay, and this video details the top 4 reasons why we think so, plus a bonus reason. Our most recent stay was for one night in late March 2023, and it was just the 2 of us. We weren't sure we were even going to keep this reservation because we had been away from home for over a week earlier in the month picking up our new car, and we were enjoying just being at home. But as the day of our stay approached, we were ready for a Disney fix, so off we went. We arrived at around 2 p.m. after checking in online, but our room still wasn't ready. We had to park pretty far away from the hospitality house because their parking area was full and so were the nearby lots. Old Key West really has a Florida condo feel, and the layout with the parking areas really makes you feel like you live here, which was probably the point. As we walked back towards the hospitality house from the parking spot we had finally found, we were already enjoying the first reason why we think Old Key West is the best no-park resort: the walking. This resort is enormous, and the walking doesn't just end here. There is also a walking path along the river that takes you to the Saratoga Springs Resort and further on, Disney Springs. A cast member was kind enough to point out on a map where the entrance is because we had forgotten.
455.
Okay, so
this is where we're at right here.
Okay.
And there's a pathway right here, right between these 2 buildings.
Okay, and then we can get to Saratoga Springs right there.
Yeah, it's about a mile and a half.
Okay. All right, great. A mile and a half-ish is right, and Google Maps clocked it at about a half-hour walk. The walking paths are relatively quiet until you get to Disney Springs, of course, and you will only infrequently encounter the occasional golfer, other pathwalkers, and/or Disney staff members. And of course there are the boats driving back and forth on the river. For us, this is just another great Disney experience and a great way to enjoy being outside on a beautiful Florida day. And speaking of boats, if walking isn't your thing, our second reason for choosing Old Key West for a no-park stay is Disney's boat system for the resorts along the Saratoga River. Disney's water taxi service connects guests from 4 Walt Disney World resorts with the Disney Springs Retail and Entertainment District. The 4 resorts are Old Key West, Saratoga Springs, and Port Orleans French Quarter and Riverside.
Watch your step, please.
We embarked on the scenic ride to Disney Springs. A tip here is that if you're staying at any of these properties, you will need to pay attention to the color of the flags on each boat in order to get back to where you came from. We did not, and we got off the ferry at the Disney Springs landing and jumped over to the wrong boat and ended up at Saratoga Springs when we intended to go to Port Orleans French Quarter for an early dinner. But we made the best of it and walked to the Saratoga Springs quick service market and bought a cheesesteak to tide us over to get to our intended destination. We then rode the boat back to Disney Springs, where we got on the correct boat to get to Port Orleans French Quarter, which is the one with the purple flag. Even though these ferries are technically transportation, we actually enjoy using them, so we didn't mind our mistake. We finally arrived at Port Orleans French Quarter. This is the hotel we loved to stay at the most before we bought into Disney Vacation Club. We have been tempted to book a hotel night here just to enjoy walking around, and we probably will at some point now that they got rid of the nightly parking fee. But we were a little disappointed with the food offerings this trip. We hadn't been here in a long time, but we had read a while back that some of the old theme foods that we loved, like the muffaletta, were removed. Their menu now is sort of homogenized with the other moderate and value resorts. So we decided to continue along the walking path that connects Port Orleans French Quarter with the Port Orleans Riverside Hotel to see what food was available over there. It looks like those horse-drawn carriages yield to oncoming pedestrians. Off the path in order to stay out of people's ways. Looks like they're still selling those 50th anniversary refillable mugs at the Riverside Mill food court. Our favorite meal here used to be the pot roast, but it looks like it's been replaced with a braised beef dish. We'll probably try that someday, but today we settled on trying the jambalaya. Now, neither of us are really into spicy foods, and we know that jambalaya is supposed to be a bit spicy, but wow, this was really spicy. Other than the spiciness, it tasted fine to us, but my husband ate most of it because he can handle more heat than I can. I was able to enjoy some of it though by getting a side of white rice and mixing the jambalaya into it. It was enough because we had already split the cheesesteak earlier, and I was saving room for dessert later on. As we watched the animatronics for free at the Riverside retail store, we were reminded of our third reason for choosing Old Key West as our favorite resort for no-park stays. We know that 5 of the other DVC resorts are tied with Old Key West in regards to our top 2 reasons, i.e. walking and access to non-bus transportation options, but those resorts offer something that is usually a huge perk that Old Key West doesn't have, and that's walking distance to the theme parks. So, as weird as it sounds, our third reason that Old Key West is the best no-park resort is because you can't walk to a theme park. As an example, our very favorite resort is Boardwalk, but I could never commit to a no-park stay if we were staying there. It is just too easy to walk into Epcot or Hollywood Studios. My husband has been asking for no-park stays for years, but because we used to have to travel to Orlando from out of state, I could never do it. Now that we live here and go to the parks often, it is definitely easier to do a non-park stay, but staying at Old Key West helps to remove the temptation. Anyway, all of our boat rides on this day happened after we had gotten into our room. Remember that cast member who showed us how to get to Saratoga Springs on the map? He checked on our reservation for us and got us into our room right away, which was very nice. Thankfully, we were able to find a parking spot in the same lot as our villa. Our villa was on the first floor. From what I've experienced, Old Key West seems to have the only DVC studio rooms that have 2 actual beds instead of a bed and couch bed. Since there is just the 2 of us, our preference is to have a couch, but I can see the second bed being better for people with kids, and that's probably a big draw for these rooms. I read on the internet that the villas were refurbished in 2019, and I have to say that I think they missed the opportunity to make some amenity improvements that even the All-Stars resorts offer now. There isn't a nightstand for all sides of the bed, and to my dismay, there wasn't a makeup mirror available in the bathroom. But, as with the majority of our stays, our trip was more about the resort than the room, so we just dropped off our stuff and left. Later we had some fun with the in-room game of cranking down the curtains. So going back to our adventures on the ferry boat service and after our quick service meals at Saratoga Springs and Port Orleans French Quarter, we rode the ferry back to Disney Springs. And I'll use this opportunity here to mention our bonus reason that Old Key West is our favorite no-park resort. We've been to Disney Springs a few times before, and that includes when it used to be called Downtown Disney, but I can't say that we've ever really liked it. Ironically, the most we've come here is recently when we moved to Florida, and we thought maybe it would be better if we could just drive over. Well, the traffic, the crowds, and the rigmarole with the parking garage and getting into the place made us like it even less. So, we were happy at the ease in which we were able to enter Disney Springs from the boat dock at around 7:20 p.m. We were also surprised and thrilled at how not crowded it was on this particular evening. It's probably superfluous of me to say it, but if you don't like crowds, don't go to this Days of Christmas store around Christmas time. We came here twice last year looking for a Christmas ornament, but this was the first time we actually enjoyed our shopping experience. And that's when we realized that a stay at Old Key West or even Saratoga Springs can help us to actually enjoy spending time at Disney Springs. Speaking of first times, we had attempted to try one of the cookies at Gideon's a few times last year, but the line was always too long. With our Old Key West stay, we figured tonight was the night, and we walked up to find that the line wasn't that bad. We were told that it was a 30-minute wait. Now, we have seen some rave reviews about the cookies, but we also heard from a friend who said that she didn't think they were very good, so we had kind of middle ground expectations. We ended up trying the peanut butter chocolate swirl cookie first, and we thought we might not like Gideon's because this cookie was not very peanut buttery tasting, but it had tons of coarse salt in it, like a salted pretzel, which was really weird. We don't even like our potato chips that salty, so we were put off a little, but the second cookie we bought was better. It was the evening dark coffee cake cookie, and it was pretty tasty. We both said we would buy one again. We also couldn't help but try 2 slices of cake, but we're pretty picky when it comes to cake, and neither of us likes imitation buttercream, which most places make. We first tried the Valentina, which the Gideon's team member described as a red vanilla-based cake, so not a red velvet like it looked, with Oreo icing. The cake itself was very crumbly, but it tasted good, and the buttercream actually seemed like it had butter in it. Our second slice was the peanut butter chocolate cake, and I enjoyed this more than I expected. I usually prefer a moist, dense cake with less icing, and I would normally throw the vast majority of the icing away on this, but I actually ate all of the peanut butter flavored icing, albeit not all at once. We only had a few bites of everything while we were at Disney Springs, and we ended up taking the rest home to pick over the next few days. If we were at Disney Springs and hankering for a cake or cookie, we would definitely try something at Gideon's again. After those decadent desserts, we decided to try to burn some of it off by walking back to Old Key West. The walking path by the lagoon was very pleasant and pretty quiet at around 8:45 p.m. As we walked past the parking lot area, we saw where the Disney minivans go to sleep at night. The path was pretty well lit, but then our Google Maps showed we should continue to the left of the river, but there wasn't any lighting in that direction, so we followed the lit path over the bridge and had to ignore this golfers only sign. In the light of day, we saw this sign indicating the path was closed from dusk until dawn. Oops! Thankfully, the lights took us along the golf course and we got back on track. After relaxing in the room for a bit and definitely eating a few more bites of cookie and or cake, we decided to check out the gym. We like that the DVCs have pretty decent gym equipment, although some of them could use a little more routine maintenance. For those of us who try to stick to a schedule when working out, it is really helpful to have equipment accessible, even when you're supposed to be on vacation. Although I'll admit that I've skipped a few workouts while at Disney, even after I'd lugged my gym clothes on the plane with me. We headed back to the room to turn in for the evening, and we were happily tired from all of our exploring. The next day, after we packed up our stuff and checked out of the room, we took another walk. We reflected on yet another wonderful one-night visit at a DVC as we meandered around the resort, and that brings us to our fourth reason why we think Old Key West is the best no-park Disney World vacation in Orlando. We have to admit that we really enjoy the ambiance of this resort, which is best described as a Florida condo vibe, minus the annoying homeowners association, of course. I'm sure this wasn't by accident, but Old Key West really feels like a place where you live as opposed to a hotel. But it has all the amenities and services of a hotel, so it's the best of both worlds, and that's a thing we love about DVC in general. A last note about this particular trip is that we went during the beginning of spring break, and we don't usually like to go to the parks in March anyway in case they're too crowded, so a no park stay was ideal, and compared to some other DVC properties, the points to stay at Old Key West during this time frame were about the lowest you needed, so we might make this an annual tradition. Thank you for watching, and remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Paradise today to see our next video about why we chose to buy an all-electric car after retiring to Florida.